Chapter 10. Holling joined us for supper, and it was nice to have him. After supper, he and I sat out on the front porch. Nana Murdy brought out a couple of pieces of pound cake for us, and she came right back out with coffee for Holling and milk for me. She didn't stay with us, though. The cake was delicious, as was anything Nana Murdy made. I went out in the yard and dumped out the cake crumbs from both of our plates. Holling and I waited in silence. Soon a couple of cardinals, one male and one female, flew in and pecked at the cake crumbs. I spoke. I knew it wouldn't take long for those birds to come in and eat. Holling smiled. Yep, those birds know you well. The sun fell behind the distant trees, and a coolness came in the air. Holling looked into the distance and appeared to be in deep thought. He looked almost sad, and I wondered if he was thinking about his wife. I figured much of his life had been spent thinking about her. Mama brought my jacket out to me. Thanks, Mama. Holling smiled. Those two women really love you. You're a lucky young man. I agreed. Yeah, I guess I am. You know what? Asked Holling. I have something for us tomorrow morning. Be at my house by 6 o'clock. I'll be there, Holling. I never knew what my old friend had in store for me, but it was always something good. Well, Eb, I guess I'll go on home now. Good night. Holling opened the front door and gave a thank you to Mama and Nana Murdy. He turned and walked gently off the porch and through the yard. His walk was weak and his body looked old. I smiled and whispered softly, Good night, old friend. The next morning came and I arrived at Holling's house well before 6 o'clock. I gently knocked and Holling answered the door. Eb, you don't have to knock at my door. Just come on in. Okay, no more knocking. Good man. Now, come and eat. Holling served eggs and bread again, and it never got old. It was a great breakfast every time. We finished the meal and headed out the door. On the end of the porch were 2 fishing rods, a bucket, and a small metal tackle box. Holling put the bucket handle over his right arm and let it hang, and he picked up a fishing rod with his left hand. I carried the tackle box and the other fishing rod. Then a car pulled into the yard. It was my teacher. Get in, men, said Miss Bear. Are you going fishing with us, Miss Bear? I asked. Miss Bear just laughed. No, I'm giving you 2 fishermen a ride to the river, but first we have to stop at the hardware store for some minnows. We loaded Mrs. Bear's big old car and managed to fit the rods inside the cab. Holling said, Eb, it's the right time for crappie fishing. We should have good luck this morning. Miss Bear said, and men, I expect to have some fresh crappie for supper tonight. Don't let me down. I felt pressure to come through for my teacher. I must have looked worried because Holling gave me a wink and a nod. It made me feel better. Holling bought some minnows at the hardware store, and we went on our way. Miss Bear dropped us off at the river. Miss Bear said, I'll come back around 10 o'clock to pick you men up. Good luck. Come on, Eb. I have just the place to fish. It's my own secret hole. We walked along by the river and came to a nice little inlet. Holling pointed at a big rock close to the bank. Eb, see that rock? That's the spot. I always fish directly in front of that rock. I sank a little pine tree in the water in that spot. I tied some bricks to it and sank it down. The fish like to bed in old sunken trees. It's an old trick that my dad taught me. If this spot ever runs dry of fish, then you get a small pine tree and sink it out in the water. You might have to get somebody to take you out in their boat. That's what I did. And keep the location a secret. Now let's see what we can do. The sun had just started to come up over the horizon. I was glad to see the sun because it took off the morning chill. I thought about the times fishing with Papa, and I wished he was there with us. We baited up with minnows and threw in our lines. We also had bobbers on our lines. Holling said, Eb, keep your eye on your bobber. Crappie are different than other fish. They don't always take a bobber underwater. The bobber will just glide across the top of the water. If you see the bobber scooting across the water, then set the hook and reel it in. We never got any strikes from the fish. We need to change our depth, said Holling. These fish must be a little deeper. Reel her in, and we'll set the bobber for deeper. We reeled in and pulled our bobbers higher on the line so the bait could go deeper. Holling put on a fresh minnow, and I did as well. We threw in our lines again, and we both had strikes in less than a minute. Both bobbers scooted across the water. We set the hooks and reeled in a crappie at the same time. We pulled the fish out of the water, and Holling pulled out a tape measure. Holling measured his fish and said, "About 10 inches." Then he measured my fish and said, "About 11 inches." I couldn't hold back a smile. "You were right, Holling. The fish were deeper. How did you know?" Holling replied, a lucky guess. The fishing was red hot, and we reeled in one crappie after another. We put the fish on a stringer that was in Holling's tackle box, and the stringer stayed in the water while we fished. We didn't keep the smaller fish. Holling wanted to release them so they could grow and be caught another day. By 10 o'clock we had at least 2 dozen fish. I knew that Miss Bear would be proud. When she pulled up, I held up the heavy stringer of fish. She smiled. We got into the car, and Miss Bear said, "Crappie are my favorite fish. They are just so tender and delicious. You men really came through for me." Holling looked at me and smiled. I know pride was written all over my face. Miss Bear dropped us off at Holling's house. "We'll bring you some fish as soon as we get 'em cleaned," Holling told Miss Bear. "I can't wait," returned Miss Bear. Holling sat on the ground and pulled out his knife. Then I pulled out my knife as well. We went to work cleaning the fish, and it wasn't hard at all. It didn't take very long to finish. I asked, "Can we take some fish to Miss Bear now?" Holling replied, "We sure can. Then we'll take the rest to your house. Your mama and your Nana Murdy would enjoy a fish meal. Holling, you'll stay and eat with us, won't you?" Holling nodded. "I will. Thanks, Eb."